أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Just a quick revision on the lesson that we did 2 weeks ago, because there was a gap, if you could remember, for the last week fiqh lesson that we do on a monthly basis. So again, as we revise everything that we have done, so inshallah ta'ala, let's go back to the basics. So what you do, as you see a word in Arabic which is called kalima, you identify whether this is a noun, verb or particle, which is ism, fail or harf. So we have not touched upon verb. We might have touched upon a little bit of harf, but our main focus so far remains on noun. And noun, we said, is identified by either tanween, which is nation to dhamma, to kasra or to fatha, dhammatan, kasratan and fathatan, or there's al with it, or it is one of these categories. So if you look at all the nouns together, you can divide noun into 2 groups, which is either ma'rifa or nakira. Ma'rifa being definite, nakira indefinite. So if you have ma'rifa, which is definite noun, there are quite a few types of that. And then you have nakira, which mainly is broadly categorized into 2. So you have ismul zat, ismul sifa. Ismul zat or ismul sifat. That as in a common noun of name of anything, as you say in English, name of animal, things, person, place, or even the name of the verb itself. These are all called ismul zat, the common noun in English. And this is normally identified with a tanween at the end. You would not see al, because that is a sign of the definite. Then ismu sifa is another category of nakira, indefinite group, which is adjective, explanation of the attribute of that noun or any noun. So common noun's attribute is generally nakira. Then from definite group, you have quite a few different types. Yes, you would have tanween on ismu sifa as well. Now, definite would have either. So what do we mean by a definite? It's just that something which is identified from the big cohort of things or place or name or animal you have identified. There's some restriction to it. It is not that it could be anything. As if you say rajulun, for example, rajulun is any man anywhere in the world. If you make it ar-rajulu, then that is a specific man, the man, which is in English an apple or the apple. There's a difference, and that is the difference which we see in ma'rifa and nakira, likewise in any language. So something which is identified, something which is definite, which is not beyond limit, which is not, unlimited in its import in terms of the information it's giving you. If you mention that word, people would know of a certain group of things, name, whatever the category it is from. So you have proper noun, for example. If you say Khalidun, there can't be anyone and everyone in the world with the name Khalid. Not everyone is Khalid. There are only few Khalids in the world, especially in your area, especially the one that you would come across. So that would make it very clear that anyone who has a name is a proper name, is a proper noun, which is what we call Ismul Alam. Ismul Alam, name of a specific thing. It is also a specific place, a specific group, specific types. Ismul alam. Ismul ishara, likewise, hada, tilka, this, that. When you point to something, this book, that book, this boy, then now you are already restricting it to that particular boy. It is not everyone and anyone. Then you have munada, which is vocative, that you're calling someone. So if you call someone, oh so and so, listen to me. Oh people of this area, listen to me. Oh children, listen to me. So now you have already restricted it from the generality to a group, to a type, to even one individual. Then it would be ma'rifa, because now it is identified, more restricted. And then you have mudaf ila al-ma'rifa, which is possessive case, genitive case, where you have possession, something being nakira on its own, but it is possessed by someone else. It is related to something else. A house, baytun, is any house. Baytu fulanin, baytu rajulin, the bed of the house, of the men, the house of the men, the book of the men, the book of the boy. then this is not any book. This is a book related to the person. And you have a small dhamir pronoun, he, she, it, they. They, when you say he, she, it, they, you can't use he as a beginning, at the beginning. You have to have already mentioned that particular individual before you mention he in the next sentence. Fahim is my brother, he passed away 2 months ago. So he here means that we are referring to him, he, Fahim. It is not any he in the world. So that is why he, she, it, they as pronoun becomes definite, because it is related to someone which is already been mentioned and identified. Ismul Mawsul, relative. The boy or a man that came yesterday. A girl who knocked the door, who here is that, him, alladhi, allati. That makes it very much specific to that individual who you have already referred to. So the listener would would be very easily understanding where you're coming from, who you're referring it to. So it is called a relative pronoun. And then you have mu'arraf billah. It was nakira, but you added al to it to make it ma'rifah. So the rajulun becomes ar-rajulu. This is the man. The man is a specific man. It is not any man. It is the man, which you have already referred, is identified.
Indicative pronoun indicative pronoun.
It is pointing to someone, saying this man, that boy. That boy, out of so many students sitting here, if I say talibun, any talib, any student, this talib is late, for example. So this talib is a specific talib. It's not every student. This is that particular individual. So if you point to someone by this or that, then you're making it identified in the big group of any talib. Okay. Which is ishara. Now we said you put nouns together. You put nouns together, they become group. They could be ma'rifah or nakira. You put them together, they become group. And this group would be either a complete sentence giving a clear sense, which we call, what do we call a group, by the way? Compound, we call it, what do we call? Murakkab. Murakkab. One noun, second noun. Together becomes murakkab. Combination, compound. And this compound could give you a clear sense, or it might not give you complete sense. If it does, then it is called murakkab tam, which is complete murakkab, complete compound, sensible, meaning could be deduced from it. Or it is also called, this one is called, murakkab tam is called jumla. Here it will be jumla ismiya, yes? Or we'll come to that in a minute. Jumla, complete sentence. Ideally jumla ismiya because it has got two jumlas together. But murakkab tam or jumla. Or you could have murakkab naqis. Naqis means defective. The murakkab, two nouns, yet it doesn't give you complete sense. It gives you some idea. Book of the boy. Now, book of the boy is a murakkab naqis because it doesn't give you book of the boy what? Is lost, is here, is new, is old, or what? It's been sought after. Oh, there has to be something before or after it to give you a complete sentence. Likewise, murakkab tawsifi, a beautiful house. What? A beautiful house? Yes, we got some idea of the house. This is a description of the house, but what? Yeah. What about that house? No, we know which house. It could be the beautiful house. Well, we know which house, but the idea is not completely, transpired from this statement. So if I said the beautiful house, what? The beautiful house. If I said, the beautiful house, can we continue this conversation? If you say, yeah, a beautiful hen. And you say, a tall log. And you say, a beautiful whatever. We can't communicate like that. There has to be something before or after that. There must be something. Did you get that?
Yeah.
So it is an incomplete compound, which is what we call murakkab tawsifi, because there is some adjective attached to it. Then you have ishara, murakkab ishari as well, and you have murakkab adadi, and there are others. We haven't touched upon that. We have just so far covered murakkab tawsifi and idafi. What is murakkab tawsifi in brief? By the way, we have done all those lessons, so the people who are listening now should know that this is lesson number 7, actually 8th lesson revision. So they must have gone through all the previous stuff, which was over 2 hours roughly, going to each of these details really. So murakkab tawsifi is where we said, now this ism and that ism, two together. First part, second part. The first part is called Mawsuf. Second part is called sifa. Mawsuf sifa. Mawsuf sifa. Or man'oot naat. Man'oot naat. Man'oot naat. Naat is praise of something. It could be good, it could be bad. Praise or censuring someone. Telling that this is ugly or short or black. In not a racist term, but in whichever way. With character. So Mawsuf, sifa. The first part is Mawsuf, the one being described with the quality. And second part is the quality or the description. It's called sifa, adjective. You put them together. So they should both correspond to each other in four things generally, three things minimally. If there's an exception, we'll come to that in a minute. So what are the four things? They should correspond to each other in gender. Mm-hmm. So if the Mawsuf is masculine, you expect the sifa to be masculine as well. Muzakkar, muzakkar, men. Likewise, nakira. If the first part is nakira, second part must be nakira as well. If the first part is ma'rifa, then second part would be ma'rifa. Feminine. So gender or their form and their adad. One, two. One man is described by one sifa. Because in Arabic, you have to have all those numbers attached to the sifa as well. So you have to two sifas for two. So more than two, which is jama'a, then it is plural for jama'a, group. So you should correspond in that numbers. And finally, the declension, the state, the form that they are in, which is if they are marfu', mansub, or majroor, which is what? Nominative, accusative, and genitive. Those are the cases, which actually we're going to talk about in today's lesson. If they correspond to each other in four things like this, then this is what we call murakkab tawsifi. And the example would be baytun kabirun. So baytun is muzakkar, one house, and it has tanween, dhammatan, two tanween, which is in marfu' state, and kabirun is likewise muzakkar, and it is one, and it is in marfu' state, and they both are nakira without al. So this is murakkab tawsifi. So mawsuf sifa. If you have al baytu, al kabiru, then they're exactly the same, except that both are definite now. Fine, happy with that, because they both have ma'rifa, al attached to them. And you have noticed, then if you attach al to a nakira, the tanween is replaced with a normal one sign. Whether it was fatha, dhamma, kasra, whatever is the state, it would stay in the same position, except the tanween, you can't have it anymore, because now tanween is a sign, in this case, of a nakira. You don't want to put al to make it ma'rifa and leave this tanween sign, which is a nakira sign. So you have to remove that, just to make it ma'rifa properly. So al-baytu, as opposed to baytun. But there was one exception to this rule. What was that? Who can remind me of that? Not this as a whole. They should correspond to in four things, but there's one situation where they shouldn't. Then they jama'a ghair. Exactly. So jama'a ghair aqil. Now we're talking about unintelligent being, which is animals, plants, trees, things, any place. These are the things which are not intelligent. Intelligent beings are only human beings, angels, you can count them, and jinns. But we don't talk about them as much as we talk about people. So the people, they would correspond in everything when it is a situation where you have a jama'a, not singular, not dual, but jama'a. Then you bring their sifa with their description as wahid mu'annas. Wahid mu'annas, which is what? Give me an example of that. So we say shajarun, tall tree. How would you say tall tree? A tall tree. Shajarun tawilun. Shajarun tawilun. Wahid. Shajarun tawil. If you have two of those, shajaratani tawilatani. Both in the same declension, same state, and everything similar. When you go to jama'a, which is ashjarun, jama'a, too many trees, tawilatun, wahid. You don't make it, and wahid mu'annas. Whereas shajar was muzakkar, ashjar is muzakkar. But we bring about wahid mu'annas sigha.
Why we did a dual of shajaratani?
Sorry, shajarani tawilani. Sorry, shajaran, because shajar or shajaratun, so I confuse that with that. So no, very good. Shajarani tawilani. Shajaran. Yes, it is in a different state. So declension changes. Shajaraini. We've covered that a little bit, but we'll go through that again, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, then we tree, yes, a tree. Gender, we said by default any Arabic word which is ism is muzakkar unless there are a reason to make it a muannas or consider it to be a muannas, which is number one, if they are attribute or name of a feminine. So Aisha, we know, is a feminine name. Maryam, we know is the name of a lady. So fine. Hind, we know is the name of a feminine. So it has to be a feminine. Likewise, any attribute which is related to a woman. For example, Arus. Yeah, Hamil. So bride. Bride can't be men. So it has to be. So sometimes people do Arusa, which is wrong. It has to be Arus. Arus as a bride is bride. As I said before, things are changing now. But that is the norm. The norm is that Arus remain a feminine in Arabic. Hamil, pregnant, in that sense, is Hamil. You don't have to say Hamilah, although we say it in Urdu language. But actually Hamil by default means pregnant lady. But you do, although literally it could mean someone carrying, the carrier, the people who carry something, uli. But in that regard, it is Hamil. You don't have to make it Hamilah to make it a feminine, because you can't have masculine. A ta'ut tanis, which is ta'ut tanis, is the ta attached to a feminine, rounded one, which is, so you have rajul, you have kabirun, for example, kabirun, kabiratun. Although for the rajul, what is the feminine, by the way, since I mentioned it, just you can't have rajulatun. There's some words which you can't do it that way. Normally it is the case. Imra'atun. Okay. Rajulun, feminine would be imra'atun. Good. Any other example? Hirrun, cat, hirratun. Kalbun, kalbatun. Cat, dog, and likewise. So you can add ta to make it feminine.
But kalbatun is female, isn't it?
Yes.
Kalbatun.
Ammun, yes. Ammun, uncle, paternal uncle. Ammatun, paternal aunt, which is pupi. Pupa, chacha, and pupi. That's how it goes in Arabic. Brother and sister on this side, and likewise khala and khal. Khal is your mom, your maternal uncle, and khala is your khala, not the husband. So this is zawju khal. Zawju khala. So the khala's husband, which is khalu, but not khal. Khal is your mom. But that's a different way of the language in Arabic. Or you have alif maqsura, a small alif, shortened alif written at the top with a ya sign to make it feminine. Uzma, Nu'ma, Salma, those sort of things. That is a sign of a feminine, generally. But there are exceptions. As there are exceptions for rounded ta. If the rounded ta word is a name of a man, then it would be men. Hamza. You're not going to say, oh, there's a ta there, which means this is feminine word. No. This is the name of a sahabi who is a man. We know. Talha, Usama, Khalifa. So Uzma, Salma is generally feminine, but you could have Yahya, Isa, Musa. They're feminine. They're not feminine. They sound like that, but they are the names of prophets. We know it clearly. Alif Mamduda, the alif with Hamza after that. Zahra, Hamra, Sahara, those sort of words are generally feminine. Or any paired organs of the body. So you have two hands, it's feminine. Even one would be considered feminine. 2 feet, ridge, still feminine. Sa'aq, feminine. Ears, udhun, feminine. Ayn, feminine. Nose is 1. Wajh is 1. It's all masculine. So paired organs. Name of places, as in English, all the places are feminine. And there's some which are sema'i, heard as such, as feminine, which is nafsun, shamsun, narun, harbun, those sort of words, which Arabs use it for no reason, but we have to just listen to it. Yeah, it's sema'i, we heard as such. And this is what we would do today, bit of that, but just to remind you again about the numbers. We said you have in Arabic wahid tasniya and jama'. Wahid, tasniya and jama'. Unlike many other common languages like English and Urdu, you have muzakkar muannas, singular, plural. But you have in Arabic singular, dual and plural. One, two and more than two. More than two would be jama', not more than one. Not two and plus, no. Two as a separate group. You have dual. It's called tasniya or musanna. Tasniya or musanna. Wahid is your wahid. So it's example, any example. So you could, here we've quoted katibun. Katibun is the writer. Now I'll explain the reason. Today we will talk about declension. Declension being the state the word is in. Any ism is in a state. All the words, in fact, other than ism as well. But we're talking about ism at the moment. So nouns are in certain state. They are in one of the three states. Either in marfu' state, mansoob state, and majroor state. The beauty of that is that if you know what state they are in, you could identify their place in the sentence. For example, unlike other languages where if you change the order of the words, the meaning changes completely. Khalid hits Hamid. Khalid hits Hamid. You change it, Hamid hits Khalid, the doer becomes the object, the subject becomes the object, and the object becomes the subject. Changes completely. In Arabic, it doesn't work like that. The one word which has been identified as fa'il, for example, would be in nominative, marfu' state. So whether you put it here, in the middle, or at the end, doesn't make any change. It would actually be the same. So if you say, ضرب حامد خالدا. Hamid hit Khalid. And now you change it whichever way, it will remain the same. ضرب حامد خالدا. You can say حامد ضرب خالدا. خالدا ضرب حامد. Remains the same. Meaning doesn't change because their state, they are punished with that state, and they can be wherever, still be the same. But that's the beauty of the language. And this is fasaha and the depth of the language. Obviously, normally there's the order that people follow, but in fasaha, sometimes you can change it. In poetry especially, you have to change it just to fit that scale of the poetry. So, which is the depth, which is the language, inshallah ta'ala. So those are the three states. We talk about that in detail later today. Here, we're thinking about, so what is dual? Dual is two, which is identified as ani or aini. So, talib. Talib is student. Two of them would be talibani. And more than two would be talibuna or tullab as a jama' mukassar. Talibatun as a feminine, the jama' would be talibatun. What is the tasniya? Talibatani. Yeah, talibatun, talibatani. So if you look at that here, so we've taken this word katibun because we have already talked about jama'a, which could be broken jama'a or salim jama'a. Broken jama'a as jama' mukassar or salim jama'a as sound plural. Sound plural is the plural where the actual word remains intact. You just add something after it, but the actual makeup doesn't get changed, whether it is the sign or it is the word itself. You don't insert or delete anything from it. You don't change the haraka of the word. Then it is sound. If you do any of those, you delete anything or insert anything, or you change the letter from dhamma to fatha, fatha to kasra, whatever, then it becomes broken. So there are some words which would have jama'a mukassar as well as jama'a salim. So I took this one because it has got both. So katib. Katib is a word which is to denote the person who writes. Kataba means to write. Kitabun is the master of, is the book. So katib is the person who does it. Kitabah would be masdar actually, not kitab, kitabah. Kitab, katibun. So katib, fa'il, on the scale of fa'il. Katibun, singular person who is writing, who writes. In nominative state, it would be identified with the dhamma. Katibun ya al-katibu. Katibun or al-katibu. Whether it's ma'rif or nakira, doesn't matter. Accusative, which is the mansoob state, you would have katiban. And you remember from tajweed rules that when you put two fathatan, two zabar, you have to put alif there, because when you stop there, you have to pronounce one of them. So the example would be in Quran, وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبْحًا. You don't say وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبْحًا. If it was ضَبْحٌ, you would say وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبْحًا. You stop there. That's what you do. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرُ or قَدِير. قَدِير. You don't pronounce any wow there. Yes? Alimin. If there was alimin in Quran and you stop there, you would say alim. Whether there are two tanween, two kasra or two dhamma, you just don't pronounce any of them. You just pronounce the silent last letter. Whereas if you have two fatha, then you have to pronounce one. And that is why you would find alif written in all the letters, barring hamza, but you still pronounce alif, don't write it. So you say haya sama'an, but you say sama'a without writing alif. Or rounded ta, which is a ta tanif. So hirratan, you do not write alif, but you don't even pronounce that, because this ta becomes ha when you stop at it. You don't say hirrat, you say hirra. Although in Urdu, we say zakat. Although zakah becomes ha. You don't say talhat, you say talha. You say Usama, Hamza, Aisha. Those ta, when you stop at them, they become ha. They are replaced with ha. That's why you pronounce that ha sign, ha sound. Okay? But with two fathatan, you have to pronounce one alif. So, qadiran becomes qadira. So, katiban becomes katiba. That's why that alif is written there. So, that is mansoob state. Genitive case or majroor state, which is katibin, it is identified by kasra sign. Come to next column, which is dual. So, katib, two of them would be katibani, so ani, attached to any noun will become nominative dual in the marfu' state, tasniya. Aini will be for mansoob and majroor, both states. So katibaini. Only the context would tell you what is it. Yeah. So give some examples of that. If I say, go back to singular column again. Baytun, which state? Baytun, marfu. Baytan, mansoob. Baytin, majroor. Kitabun, marfu. Kitabin, majroor. Kitaban, mansoob. Yeah. That's the practice. You just do it. Just remember those in English or in Urdu, in Arabic. Then tasniya of rajulun. Two men. Rajulani. Say rajulani. Yeah. And that is which state? Marfu state. What about other states? Rajulaini. Sorry. Say it 5 times. Raki'ani, raki'aini, raki'aini. Raki'ani, raki'aini, raki'aini. Raki'ani, raki'aini, raki'aini. Raki'ani, raki'aini, raki'aini. Then broken plural. Raki' broken plural appears in Quran as rukka' in sujood. Yeah, remember that in Quran. So rukka'. So what would be the nominative case of that? Rukka'un. Rukka'an. Rukka'in. Then go to the next, because that's exactly the same as singular column. Masculine sound would be raki'una. Raki'ina. Accusative case, raki'ina. Masculine, and then feminine sound was raki'atun. Raki'atin. Raki'atin. That is how, if you remember this and keep practicing it, you will be fine. That's what you have just done. Now we said, if the two murakkab together give some sense, they are called jumla ismiya. And jumla could be of two types, fi'liya or ismiya. Jumla ismiya is when it starts off with a noun, and jumla fi'liya is when it starts off with a verb. So we haven't covered verb yet, so we leave that to the side. We just talk about jumla ismiya. Jumla ismiya is where it starts with a noun. The first part would have a name, which is what? What do we call? Mubtada. Second part is called khabar. Mubtada, khabar. Mubtada, khabar. Which state mubtada would be in by default? Mubtada is always in marfu' state. Oh, no, that's fine. Sorry, that's what I mean. In the state. In the declension sense. In the declension form. So mubtada would be always in marfu' state. Khabar would always be in marfu' state. Unless there's a reason for them not to be. But that's a default position. So first part is called. Then we mention about genitive case. Genitive thing. Murakkab idafi. Murakkab idafi. Idafa means to have some relationship. And we said there are few things that we need to know. So these two words together, both are ism. First part is called mudaf. Second part is called mudaf ilayh. Mudaf, mudaf ilayh. First part is mudaf, mudaf ilayh. Always remember those words. First part is called mudaf. Second part is called mudaf ilayh. We said something about mudaf. What do you know about mudaf? What specific thing do you know about mudaf?
It cannot have tanween.
It can never have tanween. Very good. It can never have tanween on it. It would never have tanween. Number 2. What do you think, Riyan? Anything about mudaf, you know?
Mudaf is mudaf is
always without al. It cannot have al. It cannot have tanween. It cannot have al. It cannot have tanween. It cannot have al. Now, is this mudaf ma'rifa or nakira? Ma'rifa. In appearance, is it ma'rifa or nakira? Nakira. Apparently, when you look at that, there's no al, so you consider it to be nakira. That's why we keep it as nakira. But in meaning, it is ma'rifa. Why? Because it is related to a person, a thing, or a place, which is, whether it's ma'rifa or nakira, but as long as it is related to something, it becomes ma'rifa. Because it can't be everything. Baytu rajulin. House of the men, house of a man, then it is a specific house. It is not every house in the world. We're talking about a specific house that goes with that person, so it becomes ma'rifa in meaning. But in writing, it is actually nakira. Apparently, it looks nakira. So that is why it cannot take al, because it is in meaning ma'rifa, and it cannot take tanween, because in appearance, it is nakira. Yes. It is, I said the other way, isn't it? It cannot take al because in essence, apparently it is a nakira, and it cannot take tanween because in meaning it is ma'rifa. Okay, the other way. So it would never have that. So that's one thing. Second thing was, nothing can interpose between the two. Mudaf, mudaf ilayh has to be next to each other, regardless. If you want to put some adjective of the mudaf, some specific points to it, that has to go after mudaf ilayh. And the sifa, as I said, should go after it. Finally, what is the state of mudaf ilayh? Should always be majroor, which in singular form will be identified by kasra, kitabin, kuttabin, raki'in, rajulin, in sign, or with al-rajuli. But this is for singular, and this is for broken plural. Exactly. What about dual? The majroor state would be aini. Okay, aini. Although kasra, but with aini sign. What about jama'a salim? Sound plural. Ina. Okay. And what about feminine? Atin. Okay. Those are the specific points about that. Next. Then we said it's just a revision. You put the compounds together, you put two words together. If it's the first part is ma'rifa, second part is ma'rifa, generally it is murakkab tawsifi, generally. If it is nakira and the second part is nakira, generally murakkab tawsifi. First part ma'rifa, second part is nakira, then jumla ismiya. That's what we forgot to mention, jumla ismiya. Mubtada is definite with al, or in one of the 8 categories of ma'rifa, and then khabar has to be nakira, generally. Then again, if you have ma'rifa and ma'rifa, what are the things you would want to exclude before you call it murakkab tawsifi? 2 things. There is no pronoun in between. Very good. If there is no pronoun in between, then this is murakkab tawsifi. Otherwise, it is jumla ismiya. Or there has to be one more thing, which is the second part, which is, cannot be used as adjective. It is not adjective. So if I say ana Saleem, ana is ma'rifa or nakira? Ma'rifa. Why is ana ma'rifa? It's a pronoun. Yes. And Saleem is ma'rifa as a proper noun. So proper noun, pronoun together, they're both ma'rifa. Yet, the Saleem, in normal conversation, in normal sense, does not mean or could not be used as an adjective. Although, literally it can be. Because Saleem literally means sound. Okay, I am sound. You might mean, so you can say that I'm okay, I'm Saleem, I'm okay, I'm fine now, so I'm Saleem. But that's not the normal use or the common use of the word. Okay? So because that's the beauty of Arabic language, that every word, even the names, have got a meaning. Which can sometimes, which is most of the time actually, is an adjective. So Muhammad is an adjective. It's actually, but this is a proper noun as well. So we use the name as proper noun in normal day-to-day conversation. So if there was a word which cannot be used as an adjective, then you would consider it to be jumla ismiya. And if the first part is nakira, second part is ma'rifa, then it is murakkab idafi, provided the second part is in majroor state. Yeah, that has to be, the sticking point. Good. Now we had this scheme which we have just covered, so I'm not going through that again. Now we say finally, go on.
Actually, it is marfa, but apparently it is nakira.
Yeah, so that's what we're talking about. Apparently.
All right.
So in meaning we can't. That's one thing. Yeah, first part is in meaning marifa. In appearance it is nakira. Yeah. So that's why we say it would nakira. So it would be better to say nakira. Otherwise it would confuse people. I know. I saw your slides. That's why I haven't, we haven't had a chance to go through that. So that's the thing that you need to adjust for your own good, inshallah ta'ala. So, because in appearance it is nakira, without alif. So, then the scales we said, noun and verb could have 3-letter words. They could be 3-letter, they could be 4-letter, but only noun could be 5 letters. Verb cannot be of 5 letters. And then we talk about al-jam'u al-mukassar, which is broken plural, because plural are 2 types. And then we said there's no rules, but they can follow one of those different groups. So af'alun is scale, awladun, awqatun are the example. Fu'ulun, fi'alun, fu'ulun, af'ulun, fu'ala'u, af'ila'u, fu'lanun, fa'alilu, fa'alilu, fa'alilatun, mafa'ilu, mafa'ilu. These are the common 13 scales that you will find broken plural in. The simple way would second fa'ala, fa'ula, whatever is the word, doesn't matter. It could be fu'ila, fi'ula, whatever it is. For example, waladun, awladun. So if you know a lot about broken plural just by hearing it and knowing it from your Urdu language and from your Quranic recitation, you know those words. Maybe you don't realize that this is. For example, who doesn't know huquq? Everyone knows huquq. But you don't know what skill that would fall in because you have not thought about that. It is actually fu'ulun. Huququn, fu'ulun. Put fa, ain and lam kalimat to its place and you would know. Fi'alun, rijalun. You know rajulun is rijalun. Plural. It's broken. Why? Because you have inserted alif in between ra, jim, lam. Okay? Kutubun. You all know kitab, kutub. Kutub. So you've deleted that alif there and then changed the haraka. They become rusul. Rusul, who doesn't know about rasul? Rusul, yeah? Tilka rusul. And you know about some other words likewise. So I think it's just thinking a bit more into those broken plural words and you would know. Actually, I know quite a few. For example, buyutun, who doesn't know buyutun? Plural of bayt. You all know bayt, buyut, yeah? So broken. Baytun, because you've inserted waw before ta. Okay. Yeah. Butun. Yeah. Buyutun or butun as a tamim. Yeah. Come on. Some would have more than one broken plural. So bahrun would have biharun, abhurun, baharun or buhurun. Baytun could mean differently in different sense, we said as well. Ain likewise. So if you say bayt buyutun as in plural, a broken plural, it would mean houses. If you say abiyatun, that is this stanza, the line, the poetry line, abiyat, bayt from that. Bed bazi, commonly said and used in Urdu language. Aynun could be an eye if you say ayun as the plural. But if you say uyunun, then that's a, yes, spring, chashma, exactly. That's where we stopped last time. So we leave this one now. So that's all revision so far.